I'm Kamisha Smith. I'm a junior in high school, and this is my Girl Scout Gold Award. All Mixed Up is my first full-length documentary, and the production of this film was inspired by my own experiences as a biracial kid growing up in Atlanta. Since 2000, the multiracial population has increased by almost 50%, making it the fastest growing youth group in America. Young people all over the country get treated differently purely because of their genetic makeup. This documentary addresses this problem and will offer some solutions for how people can learn about one another without being offensive. People are constantly categorizing one another and putting labels on each other's identities. I want everyone to feel comfortable in their own skin, and I want them to be able to speak out. Oftentimes, people of multiracial backgrounds are caught in the middle of race relations, and I thought it was important to hear their stories. We asked them different questions about their experiences, and here are some of their answers. I hope you learned something by viewing this film. I certainly did.
Hi, my name is Lexi and I'm 18 years old.
My name is Lucy and I'm 16 years old.
Hi, my name is Josie and I'm 16 years old.
Hi, my name is Micaiah and I'm 16 years old.
Hi, my name is Haley and I'm 16 years old.
I'm black and I'm white, so I identify myself as both. Like, I don't choose.
Mixed.
I'm half black and I'm half white, and for a long time I didn't know what to identify with because people would ask me what I was, because my hair was a lot more curlier than everybody else's. It was a lot more coarse. I was a lot more tan, so people would ask me what I was or what I identified with, and I didn't really know what to say. So for the longest time I just said that I was white because that's what I looked like.
I fall under biracial or multiracial because when someone asks me that, it's never just one answer. I've always answered to two, black and white, which is what I am.
The racial group I identify with is either like mixed, or I guess biracial, or just black.
People ask me what I am all of the time, and it is in the most inopportune moments or the most like random moments, and it used to bother me a lot because it's like, what am I? It's like you're treating me like I'm an animal, or like I'm not human, like I'm just a person. But now I'm just kind of like, it doesn't bother me as much, but it's still, I guess there's kind of a stigma behind it, I guess you could say, is that I still kind of feel like I'm just being treated like this exotic, weird thing, but in reality, like, I'm just human. I'm just like anybody else. And I try to respond with something like witty and like, I'm a human. Or people, I get like, what are you mixed with? Like out of nowhere, and I'm like, flesh and bone, like, that's it, really. And then I tell them actually what I'm mixed with.
They ask me what I am all the time. And I used to take it as an insult when I was little, but I'm so used to it now that I understand that people want to know what race I am, and I think that's fine.
A lot of people do ask me what I am, and lots of times people say like, oh, like, you're way too white, you can't be like in this group because you look this way. And at first it used to bother me a lot because I was like, who are you to say what I am because you think that I look a certain way? But now I just realize a lot of people don't mean it maliciously. They're just interested, and a lot of the people that I've come across who ask this question, they just want to know because they're confused. They don't want to say something to offend me, something like that.
So growing up, I would get somebody every single day, one person, a random person, who would call me out and would tell me in the end, oh, you're too black to be white, or you're too white to be black. Like, you can't fit in with us. And for somebody that is very open and very personal, and somebody that wants to make friends with anybody, like, growing up with like somebody telling me that I couldn't because of my race, hurt like a lot. Like it definitely hurt like my character. It, you know, offended my personality, and for that I questioned myself, like, well, if I'm too white to be black, if I'm too black to be white, then like what am I? Like I'm nothing then, because I can't fit in with either or. And so that's when you kind of just like go off in your own space, and you kind of just like sit there and you just contemplate like, what am I?
A lot of people actually ask me who I am, but they don't really like ask like, oh, are you biracial? They'll just come up to me and they're like, you're black, right? Or you're mixed, right? And sometimes, I don't know why, but I guess because of my eyes, a lot of like people who are Asian, like when I go to nail salons or something, they'll be like, you have Asian eyes. Is your dad Asian, or is your mom Asian, or something like that? So
I think that people want to know my recent background because they want to have something to not judge me off of, but so that they can have a label that they can put on me, or so that they can expect me to act a certain way, or something of that sort. Like if I tell them, oh, I'm black, then they'll be like, oh, well, she must do this and this. Or if I say I'm white, they say, oh, she must wear Tory Burch sandals and drink Starbucks every day. Or if I say I'm Trini, they're like, oh, well, she must eat roti and curry all the time and like have some weird accent, but I don't. So I just feel like they need something that they can just choose, that they can make me.
I think because they're interested, and when they look at me, they don't know what I am, and they just want to know a little more about me.
honestly, I don't know why they want to know my race or background. I guess because just as human beings, we're just very curious creatures. Because when I see someone, I don't personally like be like, oh, I'm pretty sure they're like white, or I'm pretty sure they're Brazilian. It's just out of curiosity and just being nosy in general.
I think that asking somebody what they are is not always intended to be an icebreaker or a conversation starter. It's usually like when I'm asked that, it's a very impulsive question. It's kind of like I'm sitting here and I'm looking at you and I'm trying to figure out what you are, but I can't. So it's what are you? But I don't think that it's meant to start a whole conversation, especially growing up. I would get really discouraged and really upset, and that's a part of the problem that I have with people asking me what I am, is that people would just blurt it out and ask me that question, and then when I told them, oh, well, I'm black, I'm white, I'm Trini, I also have a little this and that, they would immediately cut me off and be like, oh, well, you're just black and white, and that's it. And so I don't think that it's meant to be a conversation starter. I think people ask because they want to hear what they want to hear. They want to see if they're right about what they think about me.
I think it can be, because then you can go into your history and your ancestors and talk about that, and then you can ask them about their background, and then it can go back and forth.
Yes, but I don't think that's a question that you ask when you don't know somebody that well. I think that once you've gotten to know somebody and they're still curious, then it's like a deep conversation you all can have about it. But I don't know, I feel like it's a little too personal to ask, just as if you're acquaintances with somebody.
I feel like what are you is most definitely a conversation starter. When you ask somebody that, you're asking for them to open up to you, and for somebody to be able to do that is, goes into depth. Like, what are you has so many answers to it, and it can have so many answers to it. When someone asks me what am I, I'm usually like, well, I'm multiple things. Like, I'm not just one thing. So for that to be a conversation starter, that's more of like a deep conversation starter, not just a plain one.
The question, what are you, can definitely be a conversation starter, but then probably not the best conversation starter, because I know when people ask me that, I get kind of annoyed because it happens so much. But for someone who may not really get that question a lot, then they get to think to themselves, talk about themselves. Like, some people, they're like very obnoxious about it, because I've asked that question once, I think, and it was like to this kid named Cody.
but but then like some people are like, oh, I'm so many things, like it's so complicated, so that must get really annoying. But I usually just say, oh, my mom's white and my dad's black, like, and then I was like, do you have anything else to talk about? So it might be a good conversation starter.
I don't really let people identify me, honestly. When people try to put me in a box, I just kind of ignore them, and I'm just very nonchalant about it. I've been in situations where people expect me to act a certain way, or expect me to say a certain thing, or expect me to feel a certain way about something, but ultimately I'm not going to let anybody have that power over me and how I identify myself. That's my being, that's my identity, and I have control over it. So
A lot of people who don't know me would just say that I'm white, but my friends know that I'm mixed.
People identify me as mixed or light skinned. That's kind of like the phrase of the 21st century for biracial kids or people. They'd be like, I'd be walking down the hallway and someone would be like, oh, there goes another light skin. Like, that's me.
on standardized tests and legal documents, I would always check numerous boxes, just all the ones that would apply to me, including other, because I was like, well, it's true. So, and sometimes I just would get lazy and I just put prefer not to answer or whatever. But then I'm like, no, like this is who I am. So, and I'm all of these things. So, and you're gonna know that.
If they don't let me choose black and white at the same time, I usually choose other.
At first, I would always check white because I thought that that's the only thing that you could, and if I like would look closely and read it, it would say like check all that apply. And once I started like kind of figuring out who I was, then I would check both.
When I get a standardized test, it genuinely upsets me because they don't have a space for biracial people, and I feel like that's like you shouldn't have stereotypes. Like you shouldn't have white, you shouldn't have Native American, you shouldn't have African American. Instead, there's such thing as blended cultures and people. So when I do get a standardized test, I check white because I live with my mother and my mom's white. But I also check other because I don't like to hide the fact that I am biracial. Like I love speaking it out and I love making sure that like people know. So if I do, it's either white from my mom or it's other just to make out that I'm biracial.
Usually in standardized tests, they have an area when you like go all the way down that says like your other, like it either says other biracial or they allow you to check both white and black, so sometimes it gets confusing. But wow, this stuff I've never really thought about. Like I just was like, oh, okay, I'll just do it. Like I don't really care. But yeah.
When I have to check a box regarding my race, I used to feel really empowered by it. I was like, ooh, I get to check all these boxes. I'm all of these things. I get to feel I'm so exotic. Like I'm so one of a kind, so multicultural, so multiracial, and I thought it was so cool. And then people started kind of making me feel bad for being proud that I was all of these things, or making me feel bad that trying to put me in a box. So I kind of got discouraged about checking the boxes. But then now I just kind of have a pass. It's just something that I have to do. It's something that I don't think too much about anymore because I've done it so many times that it's just become routine, but I don't feel any sort of way towards it anymore.
I don't really think it like bothers me as much as it used to, because I would be like, well, this isn't what I am. Why am I supposed to like conform to this one thing and just like say that's what I am? Now I just realize, I don't know, people just need to be like more thorough, I guess, and like open-minded.
When checking a box regarding my race, I'd probably have to say very irritated, annoyed, frustrated. For me to just say that I'm one thing, because typically, checking 2 boxes isn't allowed. So if I do check 1 box, I'm just like, okay, well, it sucks that there's not something for people who aren't just one thing.
I feel like it's just kind of normal to me since we've been doing it since we like went right into kindergarten with taking tests. If it was just me and they were like, oh, because of statistics reasons, like a lot of times they want statistics between people who are educated and they're black and people who are educated and they're white, and I was the only person checking that I was biracial, I'd be like very confused and kind of angry about it. But since everyone else around me has to do it and I know it's just to have like information and to check like our scores depending on what group we're put in, then it's okay.
I had Alicia Keys. That was like kind of my main influence growing up, musically and everything like that. But when I was younger, there weren't Disney princesses that looked like me. There weren't superheroes that looked like me. There was like Halle Berry as Catwoman and stuff like that. But a lot of those roles are like over sexualized and are just portrayed in a really different way. Like they're not just they're cool and like they're powerful, but they're like sexy, and that's like pretty much like that's it. But luckily now I feel like the media is making more of an effort to increase representation of people of color in movies, TV shows, all of that kind of stuff. So growing up, I kind of had a limited selection, but now I have way more, so it's awesome.
No, but like now that I've grown up, I've definitely seen a lot of other people like Meghan Markle. She is my like current mixed role model. I think she's amazing, and I think she does a really good job of portraying her African American side and her white side.
Look up to a lot of people that I would like learn in history class, people like Rosa Parks, Harriet Tubman, people like that, but I never found anybody biracial when I was young. Now there are a lot more people because I'm a lot more involved with like things like social media and music and things like that, so now I could pick a few, but then when I was a child and I was just now learning about it, I couldn't think of anybody.
Growing up, my role model was definitely Zendaya. To see somebody who was black and white like me be able to make it on a place like Disney Channel and have the impact on people that she did, like it opened my eyes and made me realize that just because you're biracial does not stop you from being able to do anything else that anybody else can do.
I didn't really have a role model. There are a lot more role models now that are biracial than there were when I was younger.
Not at all, by any means. Never. I never feel uncomfortable about being biracial. I think it's so cool.
Sometimes it's confusing because like people ask me to say things like the N-word, and I don't really like feel comfortable saying that. I don't really think anybody should feel comfortable saying that, but like a lot of like black people pressure me to say it because they're like, you're mixed, you're allowed to say it, and I'm like, I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think it's a nice phrase.
Yes, because it would just make things easier and make like introducing myself and I feel like getting to know other people more thoroughly a lot easier. But if you look at it from the bigger picture, it's not really something that is going to like define you as a person. So sometimes yes, sometimes no, but I really don't think it's going to like change your life if it were either or.
Never feel uncomfortable being biracial. So growing up, knowing like the struggles and all that stuff, as you grow up and your conscience kind of builds and your personality builds and all these things about you come together and they make you who you are, like it genuinely makes you proud. I kind of maybe like rub it in people's faces and I'm like, I'm 2 races and you're 1, so I can do this. But I would never ever feel ashamed of my race, because I consider myself not boring, basically. Like, there's more to the story.
I've never felt uncomfortable about it. I actually really liked being biracial. Like, I've always liked being biracial.
Yes, I do, and I definitely did more than I do now, because now it's not a priority to me at all, by any means, but sometimes I do feel a little bit of pressure when I'm put in certain situations or certain circumstances, but no, overall, I don't feel any pressure.
Yeah, I definitely identify with white more because I was just like raised in a whiter community and went to like a whiter school. But I definitely have my black side, and sometimes it shows.
If I'm hanging around a certain group of people, sometimes yes. If I'm hanging out with a lot of white people, then I would rather identify with one side than the other. And usually it's whenever I'm hanging out with like two different people that I wish I like looked more like they did, because I stand out more. If I'm in a group of like all white girls, then I stand out a lot more, especially like in pictures and things like that. I was like, oh man, I wish I was less tan or things like that. And so definitely when I'm in different groups, but usually no.
Now, I don't feel pressured to identify, but definitely when I was younger and I was trying to find myself, like, as a human being, I would have people that would ask me, like, are you black or white? And I never had an answer because technically I was both, but for my mom's sake, because I only had her, like, I could only say white, or I would say mixed just because that's what I am. But now if you ask me what am I would definitely say biracial.
I've never really been pressured to identify with one another, because like usually I'm just like, oh, this is how I am, like I don't really care. But I have noticed sometimes when I'm going out with my friends outside of school, or I have like a sleepover, and then like I'll just look around and I'll be like, wait a second, I'm like the only person here who isn't white, and then I start like getting a little bit uncomfortable. And I've never really like tried to be what you would say as being black, which I hate when people do that, because like you're just yourself. There's no thing as like being white or black.
No. Heck no. What are you talking about?
No, I think it's really cool, and I think it really makes me different, and I think people like that.
I used to, because like the most common thing is people expect you to like pick a side and that's what you belong to. So initially yes, now no, because it's kind of like the best of both worlds, I guess you could say. Like I don't really have to fit into one box, and that's not really the point of it.
Never. I would never.
I like it because like sometimes a lot of people are like, oh wow, you look so exotic. Like I like not being just one, not to say boring, but basically one thing. I like being able to relate to different cultures.
My favorite thing about being mixed is that I get to experience so many cultures, so many different traditions. Like in my mom's family and my Gigi's, like in Trinidad, they have so many cool different. The food, okay, the food is banging. Okay, and even though my mom is white, she's mixed with Trini, so my Gigi's makes Trini food, which is amazing. So I don't get like any bland bland food. But then on my dad's side, you know, they make like collard greens, cornbread, red beans and rice, gumbo, because I come from New Orleans. So it's the best thing. That's probably my favorite, is like the food, and then just the family dynamics, the diversity of the family dynamics and cultures.
My hair. I think my hair is really cool. My hair really like helps me identify with my African American side too, because I used to straighten it a ton, and I'm pretty sure I only straightened it because I wanted to fit in with that community, and I felt more like a part of them, and that I was like white. But now that I have curly hair, I understand that like both sides, black and white, find that having curly hair is really cool. And the black side likes how loose my curls are, and then the white side likes my hair isn't stick straight.
I think it's that it's cool knowing that I came from two completely different cultures. Like knowing that one side of my family I have like really diverse groups of people on both sides, and I'm able to like pick things from like African American side or the white side and just like I guess learn from it. It's kind of cool to know where you came from.
Is probably that I don't have to say one thing as an answer as to what am I. My favorite thing is being able to say that I know this about the white community and I know this about the black community. Like it, and if you were just black and white, like separately, you wouldn't know so much about the other. But for somebody being mixed and knowing about both races and both sides, that I can say that, you know, I agree with you because I know what that's like, or I get what you're saying, you know.
I can, I guess, fit into wherever I want to fit into.
The biggest disadvantage of being mixed is that people try to put you in a box and people try to make you choose what you identify with as far as race is concerned. Other than that, it's pretty awesome. So
Trying to figure out who you are and like who you truly are inside, because there are so many different people telling you who you need to be, and I don't really think that's fair, because we are the ones who like can decide which side we want, while some people are like have to be white and we can choose how we want to be.
A lot of the times people I guess like challenge it, I guess you could say. They say like, well, if you're white you must do this and this and this, or if you're black you must dress like this and act like this and listen to this type of music and things like that, whenever in reality like it has nothing to do with like the color of your skin. It's just like what you like to do, but people just like to put things in a box. So I guess that's one of the challenges.
I feel like a disadvantage is people don't understand you. They don't necessarily know how to react or, you know, talk to you in a way that you would understand, I guess. Jumping to conclusions a lot where it's like, oh, you're just black, but, you know, not just black. Being a disadvantage would probably be that when it comes to knowing what you are so like limited to, you know, people that understand you, as to where, you know, one white person can connect with the rest of the white community, or one black person connect with their, you know, entire family and stuff like that. But coming from somebody who comes from two completely different sides, and, you know, they have to go out and look for someone like them, that's definitely a disadvantage.
Disadvantage of being mixed might be like how, again, I said like why I like being mixed. I can fit to wherever I want to go into or something, but that's also a disadvantage because I know sometimes like it's weird, like I realized this in elementary school when usually people realize this in middle school or high school, but how I can't really like fit into like this one group because like I'm too, like what you said earlier, where I'm too black to be white but then too white to be black. And so I've noticed that like I just made my like own group where it's just like me, where I don't care what anyone thinks. I'll just like do whatever makes me happy, be friends with whoever I relate most to. So it's more of like counter reaction.
no, I don't think that it will. I think that it will change, but it won't end.
No, I think race is a huge part of our community and the world, and it differentiates people from other people and helps them identify with who they are and their culture.
No, never. I feel like it's always going to be something that's going to be in the news, and it's going to be something controversial to talk about. And I feel like things, especially like that are controversial and like you have to be careful around, definitely people will never stop talking about it.
No.
No, and in a way I kind of like don't want it to. Like it's not as in like encouraging people to be racist. It's more of like you can't really have that bleak line of like like, obviously you shouldn't judge a person based off of their race, but you shouldn't kind of try to mesh everyone together, because the reason why we're so different as different races is because we have different cultures.
There's definitely like ways you could say it better, like what race are you, or like I'm very curious. I just like explain yourself, not just be like what are you, because that can come off as offensive.
Some people can get offended by that question, and then you can just take it as somebody wanting to know or somebody being curious. So I feel like you can flip the words around, but it's all still the same meaning as what are you. So like you could say, what's your identity?
Where do you come from? It is a question that I would most definitely like to be asked, because my answer would be, I come from here, but I also come from, say, Africa. But I also come from Germany, and you know, that's another type of white. So, or what's your background? Like, that's something that's not just so straightforward and harsh as what are you, that makes you sound like you're not human. So for somebody to just walk up and sensitive, like, you know, ask, where did you come from, or like, what's your background, or you know, like something like that, instead of just like, well, what does that make you, or what are you?
A better question would just be any question you would ask if they weren't biracial, like, oh, hi, my name is blue blah blue, and what's your name? Like, there's no reason to just do that, because if you really want to get to know the person, then you're going to find out eventually. You don't have to just come out and say it, and like, because you don't know how they would react. Some people are okay with it, and some people just are very uncomfortable about that question.
A lot of people compare me to the rapper Logic because he is biracial, but he looks very white. And a lot of people would call me hit by his name because people would say, like, you look white, but like you say you're biracial. And so, I don't know, that's not really like funny. I mean, it's funny to me, but like some people, I don't know, I feel like they would just do it like for fun and like just like to tease me, but like some other people would like actually would be like, you're not really mixed, like you're lying, which is so stupid. Like, why would you lie about something like that? Like, what's the point? Like, what do I gain from that? But that's definitely something that was funny. And now he's like a huge inspiration to me, and he's biracial, so like full circle. But also in science class, I like turned around and I like told one of my friends, and he's like, no you're not, like, no you're not. I'm like, and he's like, prove it to me, prove it to me. I'm like, why do I, like, how should I like prove it to you? Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, show you a picture or something? Like, so it's just silly things like that that I guess kind of like make it more interesting. I don't really take offense to it anymore. I used to, but now it's just like water off a duck's back.
When I was younger, I think probably around 7 or 6, 7 or 8, like between that, a lot of times my mom, dad, and me, when they were still together, we would go down to Virginia, Roanoke, Virginia, to visit my grandmother. And when we were like, for some reason there was like a lot of traffic one way, because usually it takes like 9 hours, so we tried to do like a shortcut, and it was like literally around a mountain. We needed directions, so we went to this gas station, and there were like these really sketchy people there, and all I remember is just like looking around and being like, I don't think we should be here. So my dad got out and he filled the gas tank, while my mom, she went into the gas station and tried to find like someone to help us get directions. And I remember just seeing like these weird guys who had their head shaved and they had like these weird tattoos, and they like just started staring at our car, and then they like saw me and they started getting angry because they saw like my dad and how he was black, and then my mom, and then they like started like saying these horrible words to them and then to me, and like my dad quickly got in the car and like drove away. But it was like a lot, and I didn't realize it until then that like it was a lot. After that, like, I just realized how, like, because, like, we live in Atlanta, like, there's a ton of people who are, like, different
sexualities and like different races and like everyone's fine together. And then after seeing that for the first time when I was like so young, it just like really made like an impact on my life. And I don't really like to think about it, but yeah.
Growing up in middle school, being biracial and somebody asking you, are you white or black? That's, something that I got almost every day, I would probably say. It wasn't easy, but I would definitely say that there are people out there who accept you for who you are, who, think you're cool and think you're like awesome for not just being one race. So it was kind of bittersweet, I'm not gonna lie. People would shut me out, but then again, I also found like the light at the end of the tunnel.
Like, so you don't really know like who your real friends are, and so you're confused about like who you are as a person. And then once you like get a lot older and you get like a tight group of friends and you like know what you want to do, you start figuring out who you are and you're more confident in yourself and not like shy and unconfident. You like really, I think it's when you hit high school that you like get it and nothing really offends you about it anymore. It's just normal.
So it was more of like how other people interacted with me depending on like how I did, because I've noticed most people who were black kind of like strayed away from their friends who were white. Most of the friends that were white kind of strayed away, and it made like an obvious line, and that made me feel uncomfortable because I didn't know who to hang out with. Like, I have friends who are black, I have friends who are white, I have friends who were just like out there, and so I didn't really like know what to do.
These are only a few stories and experiences of multiracial teens across the country, but there are millions more. All of the interviewees agreed that the question, "What are you?" isn't acceptable. Studies show that questioning one's racial identity can be harmful during the middle school development stage, which is when most preteens are trying to figure out who they are. So next time you are curious or confused about someone's ethnicity, consider how asking, "What are you?" might be offensive, and how asking, "Where's your family from?" can still get the answer you're looking for in a non-offensive way. It's time we start embracing one another and our individuality and stop trying to fit one another into boxes. We are on this world together and have so much in common. We can't let the difference of a complexion or different shades of race tear us apart. It's more important to look towards the things that connect us instead of the things that divide us. Together we can build our world to be more socially accepting and aware. We are the AllMixedUp generation.
I'm all mixed up.
I'm all mixed up.
I'm all mixed up.
I'm all mixed up.
I'm all mixed up.